how to be accountable in recovery. If you're a recovery person or you're married to someone who's in recovery, this next few minutes can be really, really helpful. If you have yet to subscribe to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. We have hundreds of things that can help you in your journey of recovery, marriage, relationships, all of that. If you have a question, put it in the box. Well, when you have an addiction, part of the process of recovery is the word we. In the 12 steps, we is the first word because we make it, I don't. And what that simply means is if I try to do recovery by myself, I'm not going to make it. And that's where accountability comes in. It's where support comes in. And both are important. There are people who like the support of recovery. They want to be heard, but they don't want the accountability. Accountability is, I'm going to be honest with you. This is where I'm at. And in the 5th step, it says, to tell God, yourself, and another human being the exact nature of your wrongs. And I think that's kind of a beginning place to start with so that you are accountable. So let's start about being accountable to God. And if you're in your journey and you're still working with higher power, that's fine. It doesn't matter really what your concept is as long as it comes down to in step 5, you've already done step 3, which is you turn your life and will over to the care of God as you understand him. God is everywhere all the time, all the time. God can see what you're doing and he can see your heart, your motives, your thoughts. So this is a great person to be accountable. And so practically just sit in a chair with God and say, okay, God, was there anything in my thoughts? Yes, no. Anything in my deeds, long looks, lusting, flirting, grooming, porn, anything I did that was kind of even questionable, and just wait for him to answer you. And you'll get a sense of, okay, yeah, that needed to clean up. Then you can do the same thing with yourself. Doug, today when you were here and here and here, was there any energy you gave, any looks, any lustings? Did you have bad ideas hit your head? Did you have any bad behavior or unacceptable behavior that could potentially lead you down the road? It may not be overly bad, but were you looking or thinking or putting yourself in a position to see things that might trigger you toward the addiction? And then you've got to be honest with yourself and answer yourself honestly about that. Now, those two are relatively easy. And, God's not subjective, but we might be a little more subjective or lenient. But then the third thing is to tell another human being. Now here, I'm talking about the same gender human being. I'm talking about your sponsor, an accountability partner, someone of the same gender, that you go through kind of your day in your mind. And if there's things you need to talk about, you talk about it. Like if you spend more time with a secretary or a person at the coffee, or you start to look at, something maybe not exactly X-rated, but maybe it was art with nudity, or it was, bikinis or things that were really kind of questionable, or you stayed on a story that was intriguing to you that really was inappropriate, and if you're married, like your wife or husband wouldn't be proud of you at that moment, you kind of crossed the line in your heart or in your behavior, you would tell that person, hey, this is what happened today, and be accountable. I've been clean for 40 years. I still have an accountability partner, not because I'm really afraid I'm going to jump off the boat, so to speak, but I don't want to start even thinking about jumping off the boat. And I may not do something, but sometimes culture can hit me. There's things that can just pop up or situations that happen. You go, whoa, this is not where I want to be. And I call my accountability partner and I say, Bill, this is what's going on. Just keeping my heart clean on this and letting you know. And, I say, just forgive me if I did anything in my thought or heart or behavior. And we have an honest relationship. And that's where the power of recovery really comes in. When you can humble yourself, not just before God, but before another person. And in recovery, if you're doing recovery with your spouse, if you're a man or a woman, and if your spouse, if you two have an agreement about boundaries. Now, generally the boundary is behavior. It's not silly thoughts, because you can have silly thoughts for no reason whatsoever. But if it's a behavior, okay, if you are accountable to your spouse, then if you've agreed to be accountable to your spouse about your behavior, then you would tell your spouse within 24 hours about that behavior that crossed the line. And then you would just say, today I did X. And you don't want to make excuses. You wouldn't blame them for being, because you were mad at them. You wouldn't push it in any direction of being stressed or tired or lonely, whatever. You would just take responsibility. I did this today. Now, I'm going to take this one step further, especially for you married people, because sometimes there's years or decades or multiple decades where you have lied to your spouse about behaviors with others, with self, with images, and they're trying to trust you, but it's really uphill battle because the same eyes that have lied to them for all these years are saying, just trust me. And that's not exactly equal or fair to them because you're putting all the work of trust on them. And they're the ones who've been shot. It's like you shot them and then you say, here, hold the weight and let's keep going forward. Instead of, you know what, I shot you, let me carry the weight. And what I mean by that is you can just take a polygraph once a quarter for the first year, 6 months the second year, annually for as long as they need. And let the polygraph verify there's no masturbation, there's no pornography, there's no whatever the behaviors you've been into. And that can relieve so much stress and pressure in the relationship. But here's what it does for you. The gift for you is you now know there really is a God, okay? And it's not you. And if you go do this, you're going to get caught because the polygraph is going to catch you. Now, I'm Dr. Doug Weiss. I'm the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. I'm the executive director of Heart to Heart Counseling Center in Colorado Springs. I have worked with well over 5,000 men and women and couples who have gone through sexual addiction recovery or intimacy anorexia recovery. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of men and some women have told me, if it wasn't for the polygraph, Dr. Weiss, I don't think I would have made it the first months or even the first year. Because they knew they were going to get caught, it helped them to stay away from jumping off the boat. They didn't even get near the rails. They're like, no, if I do that, I'm going to get caught. And I don't want to get caught because I know what those consequences are. And they back up, they make the phone call, they get accountable, and that's the process. Now, talking about phone calls, you're going to make the phone call as you're feeling tempted or pulled in the direction of the addiction. You don't want to make the phone call after you act it out. Of course, if you haven't made one, of course, do that. But you want to use, hey, I'm really feeling tempted. I'm feeling pressure. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on with me. And I want to go back to my addiction. And I want to go look at things or do things or go sit somewhere where I shouldn't sit or be somewhere where I shouldn't be. And you want to call before. That's accountability, before doing it before. You know, asking for forgiveness, that's great. But you want to say, hey, I'm in a spot in my heart, in my mind, and I need just to reach out and say, hey, I need to talk about it. And if you'll do this kind of accountability process, I've seen thousands of people get and stay clean, regardless of the addiction. And so hopefully you will incorporate accountability into your recovery in a real way. Because those who do, they tend to get and stay well for many years. You don't have to have relapses. You don't have to go back to the addiction. You can mature and process what's going on in your life, and you can actually enjoy your life better. If you need any help with any of this, Heart to Heart Counseling Center is here for you. Just call the number 719-278-3708 or send us a question or an email at heart to heart, which is HEART, the number 2, heart at xc.org, and we'll be happy to respond to you. And if you need anything else, there's lots of YouTubes. Please subscribe or ask the question, and we will see you again.